Whatever time you're listening, I am back at it again with another podcast, and this is the Counselor's Kitchen Table podcast. I'm so glad. Now, I'm not even going to attempt to butcher your last name, but I'm glad I have my friend with me, Jed. Go ahead and introduce yourself, tell the people anything that you like to let them know about you, and give them your last name as well, because I'm not going to embarrass myself. Okay.
Hey, Davian, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. So my name is Jed Jurchenko. Good news, I like to keep it easy for people. I do respond to anything with a J.
All right.
A little bit about me. I spent 10 years as a children's pastor, 10 years working as a licensed marriage and family therapist, written a number of books.
Awesome.
And right now, my wife and I are just diving into a new path. We've started a company called I Thrive 320. It's really all about helping people take their work world and their personal lives and integrate those two things together. Because what we're finding is that, man, people are busier than ever.
Yes.
And work and life, they just kind of blend. Then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And it fast forwarded what was already happening.
Right.
You know, people were already taking their cell phones home, opening their work emails at home. Now, all of a sudden, there was this quarantine in place period.
Right.
I think for a lot of people, there was this, I can do work at home.
Yeah.
And some people love that. You know, I had this group I talked to, and they're like, yes, I can get my work done. Then I go jump in the pool with my kids. Then I come back and do more work.
Right.
And there's this other group of people that are like,
miserable.
I'm just drowning. Yeah, miserable. They feel like, man, I've got all of this work that I've got to do. I feel like I've got to swim the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
I've got to do it tonight. Because now you can work. You know, you can work 24/7. There doesn't have to be that pause.
Right.
And so it's this whole idea of, man, let's help couples integrate work life, home life, find that balance, and find that healthy rhythm. Because one thing we're finding is, man, if you're happy at home, all the research shows you're going to be more productive at work.
Yes, very true.
You know, and I know for me personally, when I'm fired up at work and just having a blast, makes home life all that much more fun. I come home and I'm like, yes, I've earned this time off.
Yes.
I've deserved this time of just relaxing and unplugging with my family and really connecting.
Yeah.
And so our whole idea is, man, if you're in that downward spiral and feeling de-energized, let's turn that around and help you get energized, because it's going to be more fun for everybody in your family. You're going to be more productive at work.
Right.
And it can be done. You know, Jenny and I both work. I'm a husband to an amazing wife. Dad to 5 kids. We're writing. We're starting our own business. Jenny's working. And life works. We're still having fun in the midst of all of this hustle and bustle.
That's beautiful.
And we love helping other couples learn how to do that too.
That's awesome. Beautiful, beautiful. And you're absolutely right. I completely agree with that notion that you have to definitely have balance between work and home. It's just one of the hardest things when you take your work frustrations into your home. You know, my mom growing up, she used to have decompression time, and we knew that when she walked in the house, we just don't even talk. It didn't matter how dirty the house was, didn't matter, we didn't take out anything for dinner, didn't matter what was going on. When she walked in the door, we made sure to give her space for 30 minutes to just kind of decompress. And that is a tool that may be helpful to somebody out there. We're going to talk more about different things and different tools and ethics that we can employ to help couples out on today. But that definitely was her advice. She needed that 30 minutes. Otherwise, you know, it could come out any type of way. There could be any type of outcome. And you definitely don't want to take out any frustrations that are irrelevant to your household and bring them into your household. That just creates further chaos and creates other issues. So you're absolutely right. And so we're going to dive into our word of the day, which is union. And so that's one of those words that I believe really personifies or just kind of brings the epitome of what it means to be in a relationship, what it means to be married, what it means to have family into play. That word union. And so I'm going to read the definition. The word is union. The definition says an act or instance of uniting or joining two or more things into one, such as in marriage, the growing together of severed parts. Okay. Second definition says something that is made one, something formed by a combining or coalition of parts or members. So anything that sticks out to you, Jed, in that definition, any of those words popping out to you want to expound on anything there?
Yeah, I love this. I love that the word of the day is union. Going back to my theology background,
Mm-hmm.
Bible talks about man and woman leaving their mother and father and becoming one in
Yes.
flesh, that oneness or that
Mm-hmm.
union. And I know that's powerful. Can I share a story about
Yeah,
how I know just
absolutely.
how important that is? Awesome. So it comes with when I first met my wife, Jenny,
Mm-hmm.
and we are going on 8 years of marriage. We'll celebrate 8 years together in December.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I still remember the moment I met Jenny. So the two of us were introduced online through an online dating site.
Mm-hmm.
And our very first date
Mm-hmm.
was at this tiny pizzeria on San Diego Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose a location. I intentionally chose this location because, well, it's one of my favorite places in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this deal where I said, okay, I'm not so sure about this whole online dating world.
Right.
I've heard stories of not everybody necessarily looks like their profile picture.
Yeah. Right.
Date may or may not show up.
Mm-hmm.
Profile picture may look great, and you may be 5 minutes into the date and thinking, "Oh my goodness, what on earth did I get myself into?"
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, all right, if this turns out to be a complete disaster, we're gonna go have dinner together. I'm gonna
Right.
say goodbye as quick as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm heading out and I'm enjoying the bay. Like
Yeah.
this place is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So day comes and I get there a little bit early. I'm waiting for Jenny to show up.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen her. All we've done at this point is write a couple messages back and forth.
Right.
And I look down at my watch. I notice she's running a little bit late.
Mm-hmm.
I stand up, turn around, and there behind me is this absolutely gorgeous girl who's just looking a little bit lost.
Awesome.
I'm thinking, oh, please let that be my date.
Wow.
Yeah. So I go introduce myself. It is. I'm like, yes, thank you, eHarmony. This is awesome.
Right.
The two of us have dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good. We're connecting. She seems very nice, very sweet. So I ask afterwards, hey, do you want to go out for a walk?
Mm-hmm.
She says yes. My heart skips a beat.
Wow.
Now it is towards the end of winter
Mm-hmm.
in San Diego.
Okay.
So the weather is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
And we're strolling along the bay. Sun goes down, gorgeous sunset. I'm like, this is turning out to be a fantastic first date.
Yes.
But as soon as that sun sets,
Mm-hmm.
man, the weather gets cold quick.
Yeah.
I look over at Jenny and I see her shivering. So I ask, hey, do you want to turn around? And I'm kind of thinking to myself, I so hope she says no because I want to spend more time with her.
Mm-hmm.
And she does. She says, no, I'm fine. Let's keep going. So we keep walking. A couple minutes later, though, when I look over, not only is she shivering, she's got goosebumps running up and down her arms. I'm thinking, all right, I do want to go out with her again. So I ask a second time, like, hey, it's cold. Do you want to turn around? And again, she says, no, I'm fine. Let's keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe 10 minutes later, I look over again. Not only is she shivering, goosebumps running up and down both arms. I'm pretty
Right.
sure she's turning blue too.
Yeah.
I'm like, this poor girl, she is freezing.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked her a third time, and just this firm determination in her voice. She's like, no, I'm fine. Let's keep going.
Wow.
Yeah. Now here's what hit me.
Mm-hmm.
After that first date, I'm driving back. I'm driving into work because I'm working an overnight job at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking to myself, wow, this woman wants to be with me more than she wants to not be cold.
Wow.
So there was in that moment kind of this
Mm-hmm.
connection or this unity of,
That's awesome.
man, Jed's more important than
Yeah.
not being freezing right now. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think that's kind of what this unity is all about, is growing together in marriage as this husband and wife who says,
Mm.
man, my spouse is more important than all the other stuff out there. We're together
Yes.
on this. We may not
Mm-hmm.
agree on a particular issue, but our marriage is bigger than that issue. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. I definitely love that how you brought that story home, and it really does. It opens up an element of understanding what it means to be selfless in your love. Oftentimes, we're in a society right now that it's all about self love and loving yourself and all that kind of stuff, and that's great. Um, it's definitely something that can be skewed and misconstrued, though, when you talk about being selfish in love. There's a difference between loving yourself and being selfish in love. And I think that that's one of those moments that just highlights a selfless love that, that, like you said, she in her pursuing that connection, this is more important than my uncomfort. This is more important than what it is that I deem uncomfortable or a little bit of weird in a way that brings me miscomfort. I think when you go into something with that mindset, when you go into your connection and your unity with that mindset, you will always win. Because 9 times out of 10, I guarantee you that that energy is going to be reciprocated, and it's going to be noticed, and it's going to be something that's given back to you. So that's a beautiful way to just even think about that moment in that instance, that literally I'm going through this, and I may have some discomfort. I may be experiencing a little bit of coldness or whatever, but this connection is more important than what it is I'm feeling physically or in my own mental state right now, because I'm seeing something, and that comes with having some vision as well. I see past this moment. When you can't see past your the front of your hand, it really makes it hard to walk in unity with someone, to be a union, to be cohesive in a relationship. And so that's a beautiful way to look at it. And yeah, it does kind of embody this definition. Um, some of the words I notice that stick out to me is joining. One, that's another word. Together, these are words that are all pulling out of the definition, and that kind of enhances the story. Marriage, growth. This is one I like. Parts, meaning that there are different factors and different variables to your union. Um, that does not mean that you cannot create the union. That just means that there's elements in which the union is created. It's not that you just decide that we're going to be together, I'm going to put a ring on your finger, we're going to get married, and then we're a union. No, that there's multiple parts, multiple layers to creating that union. And the beauty of that is, when it is that you may have trouble in the union, you can go from part to part to part within the union. That it's not just one whole lump, and there's no diversity. There's no what's the word I'm looking for? There's no other, I guess, parts or pieces to the union. No, there's parts to the union. A union is formed. It's a combination, meaning taking two or more things and putting them together. So there's different variables to your union. And then members, that's another good one. Speaks to the element of there is a commitment. Each of these parts has its own commitment to what we know as the union. You think about the scripture that talks about how we're one body, but we're many members. And that's literally what I'm speaking to when I talk about parts. There's different elements that create this union that we call marriage, that we call relationship. So very, very great story. I enjoyed that. Anything else you have about the word of the day, the definition in particular, before we move on into our food for thought?
Yeah, Davian, just something that struck me as you were talking is,
Mm-hmm.
not only what you brought up, but what word you didn't bring up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of interesting that you didn't bring up the word agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes when we think of marriage, dating, relationship,
Yes.
we think, oh, my spouse is supposed to agree with me because that's
Right.
union, right?
Mm-hmm. Not at all.
No, I would challenge that because
Yeah.
what's interesting is I don't even agree with everything I do.
Right.
You know, I want to eat healthy. I love to run
Mm-hmm.
marathons in my free time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I keep wanting to get
Mm-hmm.
faster, get better times, set a higher bar. And I just
Mm-hmm.
feel better when I eat healthy.
Right.
I know junk food's my kryptonite.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are, we've got 5 girls.
Yeah.
So one thing about having kids, man, everybody wants to give them candy and treats and junk
Right.
food. You know,
Mm-hmm.
love the grandparents, love family,
Absolutely.
but people come over with junk food around the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I wish I had that self control. But
Yeah.
there are nights where I am just like, oh, can't believe I ate that much again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't agree with what I did. Can't believe I
Mm-hmm.
did that. And I just did that again
Yeah.
because I've got to live with myself. I've got to keep
Mm-hmm.
living with myself. And I think it's that same view of marriage. Man, it's okay for a husband and wife to have different opinions. It's okay
Right.
for us to disagree, to challenge one
Mm-hmm.
another, because that's where the growth comes in.
Yes.
And so just realizing that, man, union or oneness isn't necessarily agreement. It's that
Right.
idea of, man, we're for one another.
That's
Does
it.
that make sense?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Absolutely. 100% agree with that statement. Yeah, there are going to be times where you just don't agree. There are going to be times where you have differences of opinion and things like that. Two things that just keep you connected is number one, compromise and learning how to deal with the different parts
Mm.
of what it is that you have going on and how to make them fit together, how to combine them as a union. And so there's compromise to that, and then there's other elements of understanding what works for the union. When you're always thinking about it, and the story that you gave about your wife on the vet. Now, this is the very first date, right? When you're only thinking about yourself, she could have easily been like, "Yeah, it's time to go. It's too cold." Look, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I probably would have been like, "Yeah, it's a little too cold. Maybe we can go sit in the car and run the little heat a little bit and still talk." But yeah, it's a little cold out here. But no, she literally had a mindset of knowing that this connection is worth more than my discomfort. So I'm going to think about what's to come. I'm not thinking about my right now situation. So those are two elements that I really do believe in, those disagreements that you have to kind of bring forth. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the food for thought. So that is our word of the day, union. We're going to expound and explode within the questions that we have for the food for thought. So let's get right into it, okay? The first question says, what makes a marriage a union? Okay. So we kind of alluded to this just slightly, but let's dive deeper into the concept. What makes a marriage a union? Jed, go ahead and let us know.
Yeah, I love that question. And in my mind, it's all about that connection piece.
Mm-hmm.
Because human beings, again, kind of going back to my theology side, we are God designed to connect.
Right.
And as I'm studying psychology more and more, we're learning that human beings, we're hardwired for connection.
Yes.
And you probably heard that phrase, love hurts, before.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that psychology is finding out is,
Mm-hmm.
man, physical pain and emotional pain light up
Yes.
the same area of the brain.
Okay. Wow.
And so it's not love itself that hurts,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not being able to be connected to somebody we want to connect with.
Yeah.
Because that connection is not a nicety. It's not something
Mm-hmm.
that's like, hey, just a little added extra. It's
Yes.
really one of those things that life's all about, is one of those needs. And so
Mm-hmm.
not having that human connection, it's
Mm-hmm.
like not having air, water, food, shelter.
Right.
Man, that pain center lights up and we're like, man, I need that.
Mm-hmm.
So marriage is really all about that connection, that oneness, that unity, because we're not made to go through life alone.
Yes.
You think of the prison system in the United States, and what I hear, kind of that harshest form of punishment is solitary isolation. It is, we're going to remove you from other human beings right now.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
people are like, no, I don't want that. I can't
Yeah.
handle that. Because it hurts. We're
Mm-hmm.
created to connect. So it really is all about, how do we stay connected?
Beautiful. Yeah, I agree with that statement as well. It starts and it's established in the connection, but I think where it kind of bleeds over or supersedes that connection is how it is that our relationship uh, is centered in of course God, because number one, I do believe that marriages have to reflect that connection with God. The more connected and the more centered you are with God. Now, understand this, I'm not talking about religion, because there's a difference between being active and acclimated in church, being active and acclimated in ministries and things of that nature. And it's totally different when you actually are centered in God and doing it from a place of being centered in God. A lot of times people do those things from a place of wanting to be wanted, wanting to be heard, wanting to be acknowledged, and it has nothing to do with God in your truest form of intention. So let's get that straight. What I am saying is you have to be in relationship with God in order to have a successful union. And that relationship between you and God can definitely look different person to person, because God makes sure that um, he makes sure that he connects with each and every individual as they are, where they need to uh, be in order to get them to where they need to be. Let me just say it like that. So God meets us right where we are, and I think that in that connection, you have to want to please God in that connection. And I guarantee you, if you're seeking to please God and do the right thing in your connection with Him, the connection that He allows you to have with others are so much, uh, uh, has so much great value to it. I think about people in my life that are genuinely good people, people that I've never seen angry, people that I've never seen frown, people that I've never seen complain, just good, refreshing people. And they're always refreshing to your soul. The connection that you have with them is always that of good things, and you can always go around that person and find some type of relief or love, or just all your needs get met, right? And typically these are people that are believers. These are typically people that truly have a divine connection and relationship with God. And so every relationship they have with anybody um, in earth is typically always a good connection. And there are people that I know that you like, genuinely I cannot say one bad thing about them, and that's who I strive to be, as a person. And I think that when you get that kind of an understanding, that if I'm centered with God, then every relationship I have is going to be a successful relationship. And the truth of the matter is, there are people that are going to dislike you, hate you, whatever, just because, but they will never ever cross boundaries. They will, like I said, I strive to be that person. I believe that I am, to an extent, of course, that person. But with that being said, I think about things like, when I was in high school, there was a ring of people that always. Now, I'm a big dude, a strong dude. I can hold my own, but there was always a ring of people, especially friends, that would protect me. And anybody say anything bad about me, would literally almost fight on my behalf and things of that nature, because you're just not gonna say bad things about Davion. You're not gonna disrespect this man. Because of the light that I carried on the inside, the relationship I had with God, the love I showed people. Literally, there were a lot of battles I didn't even have to fight. Not that I couldn't fight, because I could, but I just didn't have to, because God always put people in my path to keep me shielded, because of the love and the respect that they had for me. Because, just bringing it all the way back, of the love and the respect that I have for God, and how I display that before people. So with that being said, when you have that relationship with God, and you're walking in that, not to say that it's easy, not to say that it's simple, but you choose to keep it on the front part of your mind, I guarantee you're going to have a blessed relationship with no matter who it is, but especially the one God created you for, your union, your helpmeet, your wife, your husband. That person, because of that connection, will always reap benefits that nobody else can. And it's just beautiful, that connection, as you said, when it's done right. I'm talking about unstoppable, unstoppable. So that's good for me. Anything else you have on the question before we move forward into the next one?
I love that. I thought it was well said.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah, I definitely see that as the, the big piece for sure. That connection that you have one with another, but when I'm telling you, when it's right with God and you're walking in that connection, you have divine connection with other people. So, the next question says, "What makes the union of marriage important?"
Yeah, I think you hit this on the head, and I love the story that you told about having that ring of friends around you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think everybody can think back to middle school, high school.
Mm-hmm.
Man, sometimes kids in middle school, high school, they
Oh
are
yeah.
mean.
Mm-hmm.
Need that ring of friends.
Yeah.
And I don't think that need ever goes away,
Mm-hmm.
which is why marriage is so important. Now it transforms a little bit, it
Yes.
shifts,
Mm-hmm.
but really your spouse is part of that ring. That's that inner
Yes.
circle, that person you
Mm-hmm.
know is for you and has your back.
Yeah, that's security.
I've heard it said that guys, man, we need to know that we've got what it takes.
Yeah.
I think there's that constant kind of question, that constant trying to prove ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But to have a loved one, to have Jenny who I can come home to, and
Yeah.
she knows, she says, Jen, I've got your back. You've got what it takes, whether other people believe that or not. I believe that about you, and that's steady and that's not going away.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard girls need to know that, man, they are captivating, they're cherished, they're pursued. And for
Yeah.
Jenny to know, hey, no matter what happens out there, whatever anybody else comes and tells me,
Mm-hmm.
when I get home, when I'm around Jed, he is captivated with me. I am cherished.
Yes.
I'm pursued. For her to know that, for us to have each other as that inner circle,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, that's that unity. That's that oneness that doesn't go away. It's not
Right.
based on whether we agree with each other's opinions or not. Um, but that's that lasting, stable part. I think that's why union is so important, because we
Yeah.
have those needs, and we can come together and really complete those in one another.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's really good. I like that. And that's what it's all about when the intentions are right. When it is that you're because remember, all relationships serve purpose, and all relationships require some serving. And so the thing about it is, as I have to serve you in a way that meets your needs, and you have to serve me in a way that meets my needs, and together we're serving one another to meet our needs. And that is very important when you talk about the union of marriage. In my opinion, the union itself is extremely important, simply because of what you just said. It meets the needs. It meets those inner needs of who I am, of who you are, and of what's truly needed to push forward. in life and to progress in life. That's why, even when you talk about the first marriage, the first relationship, we look at Adam and Eve, right? God looked at Adam and he said, man, you're not meant to be alone. I created you, and I know that you're not meant to be alone. So I'm gonna give you a helper. And that's literally what he called Eve, a helper, meaning somebody who's going to help meet your needs. And then, of course, that service, that giving, is not for granted. Our job as men, and we learn that later on, is to also serve our wives. So men, you have to go back and be servants as well, just as women are to serve your needs. You are to serve their needs. You're to protect them. You're to build them up, guide them, teach them. And so, with that being said, the union is important. Why? Because there are needs that we just cannot meet in and of ourselves. And I think that's the part of self-love that I like to challenge with people. It's, yes, self-love is good. You have to do it, and you have to walk in it. However, you do have to know and have to be willing to admit and understand that there are just certain needs that I can't meet for myself. There are certain things that I can't do for myself. And God designed it that way because he has someone in mind that's going to help suffice some of those needs with him. Because remember, we can't walk in this union together if we're not walking with him. So with him and with his direction and with him being at the center of it, he's going to allow you to meet some needs that I can't just reach. Think about it in a way of scratching your back. There's just certain spots you can't reach. You understand what I'm saying? So he allows that one to come in to help reach those things that we can't, to help get through some of those issues that we can't in and of ourselves. And that's absolutely okay. I think sometimes we as people and as humans, we don't like to admit flaws. We don't like to admit faults. And we definitely don't like to admit that we can't do certain things. And I think in that mentality is where you get a lot of issues in your marriage, because there's no truth that's being, let's say, being accountable for the truth. There's no standards. There's no truth that's being lifted in the areas of, I need you. And that's a real thing, to know that you need who it is that God has called you to walk alongside of. So that's good. Anything before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, and there's a word I heard you use a couple times, and I love it. You're
Mm-hmm.
talking about self-love, self-care, and
Yeah.
that's so important. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
we've got to take care of ourselves, but you've been
Right.
challenging people to go beyond that,
Mm-hmm.
and I absolutely love it because it really is a two-sided kind of deal, right? This
Yes.
self-love, that self-care is so important, especially coming from the world of psychology and therapy,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that if I don't take care of myself,
Mm-hmm.
man, I'm exhausted. And the
Yes.
last thing Jenny needs at the end of a stressful day is, for her to be exhausted and then for me to come home and I'm stressed out and crumbling and barely making it
Mm-hmm.
myself. You know,
Yes.
so I love this metaphor of self-care being the oxygen mask on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Put on ours first so that we can take care of our kids,
Yeah.
those around us. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, as a dad, I understand why they tell me that every time I'm on a plane with my kids. They say, you
Yes.
put on your oxygen mask first, because
Mm-hmm.
my dad heart is like, no, I'm taking care of, all of my kids, and I'll
Yes.
put mine on. But it's that reminder of,
Mm-hmm.
Ted, you're not going to be helping your kids if you can't breathe and you're passed out on the floor.
Right.
And so I would say self-care is that same thing. I love it when I'm exhausted at the end of the day and I walk through that door feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, and I hear from my kids, Daddy's home.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny sees me and she just lights up.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how busy or how bad that day was,
Mm-hmm.
everything else melts away. And so the
Yeah.
whole idea of self-care or self-love, I like to take it
Mm-hmm.
just one step further, saying, man, it's self-care or self-love with a purpose. It's
Yes.
not as I'm filling me up. It is I'm filling me up so that I can
Mm-hmm.
reflect that right back to my family.
Pour in. Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
love what you said about that.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so let's hit this next question, because we're talking a little bit about children, which is perfect segue. Um, so the next question says, are children incorporated into marital union, or is that a separate ordeal?
Yeah, I heard that question and I put a big yes next to it.
All right.
You know,
Talk about it.
I think anybody who has kids knows that the relationship changes.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of does from day one. I think the perception a lot of people have when
Mm-hmm.
they go into having kids is yes, life's going
Mm-hmm.
to get better. We're going to be even happier. It's going to bring us closer together.
Yeah.
All the studies show that after kids, couples have
Mm-hmm.
kids tends to go down.
Yeah.
And I think there's reasons for this.
Mm-hmm.
One, both of you are probably exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we're just tired and
Yeah.
stressed and overwhelmed and in the middle of a big life change, and I can't think of much bigger of a life change than, oh my goodness, we went to the hospital, two of us,
Yeah.
and we came back with the three of us. Like, we get to keep this baby.
Right.
You know, And for all of that to be going, well, of course happiness goes down. You're
Mm-hmm.
exhausted. It's a big change. You're
Yeah.
learning new stuff. So congratulations, you're normal.
Right.
And I think of our 3-year-old the other day who, we went in and we're getting ready to put her to bed and pull back the covers. My wife does. And there's this half
Mm-hmm.
bag of marshmallows there. And she's like, where did this come from? And her
Mm-hmm.
first response was, it was daddy.
Oh.
And then she's like, or the cat.
Mm-hmm.
Daddy or the cat. Now,
Mm-hmm.
good thing is I don't like marshmallows. I don't
Yeah.
think our cat does either. So I was
Mm-hmm.
safely off the hook.
Right.
But I've got these friends, Gil and Brenda Stewart, they refer to the kids
Mm-hmm.
as those people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what a great reminder. Because it's those people. It's those people who I love.
Yeah.
It's those people who are so cute. And man, it is those
Mm-hmm.
people who will at times try to divide and conquer mom and dad.
Yeah.
We know that
Mm-hmm.
kiddos are going to go ask me if they can do something. And if I say no, there's a good chance they're going to go ask their mom next.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they know they're not supposed to do that. Do they do that anyway? Yep. And so I think it's just this awareness of
Mm-hmm.
children are part of the marriage. You can't separate them from that.
Mm-hmm.
So that bond between mom and dad, it's got to be extra strong.
Right.
And kids find security in that.
Mm-hmm.
So one, they're our kids. They're cute. We love them to death. And two, they're also those people who are going to try to find little cracks in the bond and use that to get their way. And so don't let that disrupt marriage.
Mm-hmm. So this is what I think, and I have slightly a difference of opinion. It kind of coincides, but then there's a separation for me. Now, again, everybody who knows me, all of you all that are listening, for those who know me, you all know I am not married. I do not have children. However, this just comes from, and I have done family counseling. I have a background with counseling and that sort of thing. So, but with that being said, this has come from my observation, and as well as some parts of biblical studies and that sort of thing. But this just comes from my overall observation of life and seeing life in so many different phases with so many different people. And this is just my conscious opinion of how it is that I'm going to choose to walk in my life when those days come for me. But I do not see the union of marriage and the union of family being the same. And I say this because I see so many people that want to tackle those two unions as the same thing. They get exhausted, and that's exactly what you're speaking of. So, like I said, we're on the same page, but I'm gonna tell you why my page is turning a little early. Exactly what you're speaking of people getting excited, thinking that kids are going to bring them closer together. That union is going to be stronger, blah, 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 blah. And then they have kids. And just as you stated already, they get frustrated. Couples kind of go down in a sense. There are other elements that come along with having a family that are different than the union that we call marriage. Now, here's my utmost belief is that kids are a reflection of the union of marriage. They are the product of the union of marriage. I oftentimes teach this, the difference between having sex and making love, right? And so having sex has no intentions of bringing forth children, typically. Making love is literally the product of love is children. That is the product of love. So when you talk about having a union, a married union, and you make love, literally what you're doing is when you make children, that is the product of the love that you have for one another. So as I said before, that is the product of the union. However, that is not in and of the union itself, in my opinion, and this is why. Because we already talked about a little bit how you've already stated couples get tired, and typically there's a down spiral after having a child or a few children, and before there's ever an up spiral. And what I typically see is not until either all of the children are grown and gone, or typically you may have a couple that has a huge age gap between children. So you may have a child that is grown and then a child, that's kind of in teens or something like that, and there's a gap between them. And typically, when there's a gap and you've gotten a child out of the house long enough, and then we decide to have another child, but there's usually a period in between that gap where we come back together as a union and we get stronger. And typically, what you see is that older child comes, around, and they see that younger child is raised totally different than how it is the older child was raised. Because of that gap, we've had some time to figure things out, to love one another, to restructure, to reflect on our mistakes, to reflect on how we raised you, and the things that we may not have done correctly. And then we have another child, and then our union has been stronger, but it's not stronger because we had another child. It's stronger because of that gap in between, that we took the time to evaluate our union. And then we had another child and poured into that child separately. And there's a different dynamic of how we parent this child, because our older child taught us something for what we were back then. So wrapping this all up, because I don't want too much to be thrown out there. But with that being said, when you talk about the family dynamic and the marriage union dynamic, I believe that they are parallel, but they are not synonymous. Reason being is because that when you decide, or when children come into fact, that there's another level of accountability, of commitment, of understanding, of unity. Even there's another kind of union that is formed when you talk about the dynamic of family. And I think oftentimes, like I say, we want to make them synonymous, but we have to see them as parallel. Why? Because if and this is not to be so carnal, but this is to be real. If I'm in the bedroom with my missus, and I'm being a married couple in my bed, right, with my missus, and children walk in, do I continue to be married? No. There's a whole shift. Child comes in, I'm dad now. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not husband right at this moment. Same thing with what I'm mom now. I'm not wife anymore in this moment. There's a new shift that happens, right? When child busts in the room, and it happens. We're talking about real life stuff to help real people. But with that being said, they're parallel. They're going the same direction, but they're two separate lanes. And the reason being is, and they complement one another well, but they're different lanes because I have to tackle mentally how to resolve my issues, or whatever circumstances with my children, differently than how I resolve my marital issues with how it is I confront my union of marriage. They're different. Now, we have to be a union in order for our family to work. 100% I believe that. But I do believe that these are just two different lanes that are going in the same direction, and we have to be able to balance those lanes. When you talk about marriage and how you're walking in that family dynamic, because oftentimes we look at them as the same thing, and by the time we figure out that it's not the same thing, typically it's too late. Couples are getting divorced and all that kind of stuff. You talk about co-parenting and all these different dynamics that come forward. People can oftentimes parent better after they divorce than when they're together. Why? Because their union of marriage is not the exact same as their union of being mommy, daddy, as of being family. And once they separated in marriage, then they figure out, oh, well, we still a family because we have children together. We still have to parent, and they parent 10 times better separately. It's sad, let me say it like that, and it shouldn't be that way. But I think it's just to challenge the thought process that that as we're married and our union is the exact same as we're mommy and daddy, and it's not. It's another level, and it's parallel, in my opinion. But I think that oftentimes we think it's the same thing, and by the time we realize it's not the same thing, it's too late. And definitely, so I employ that. Do your research on it, even biblically, because God speaks to husband. He says, husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church. And then he said, parents, do not provoke your children, right? He could have said, husband, don't provoke your children. No, he said, and you're in theological background, and they teach you in seminary that every single word used has intention. Every single, and punctuation, semicolon, everything has intention when you talk about studying the Holy Writ. So just in and of that, and in and of that thought process, God could have said, husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church. And then he could have said, husband and wife, don't provoke your children. No, he said, parents, don't provoke your children to anger. You see that? So even God is showing us that these are two lanes, same direction, parallel, going in the same places, but they're two separate lanes, and you have to address it that way. Not that this is a divided lane. Again, they're going the same way, but it is a separate lane that you have to be on. And oftentimes, I think that parents don't get enough time to continue to strengthen their unions after they have children. And it's very important that you have to create and hollow out space and time for you to be husband and wife, not mommy and daddy, husband and wife. And then as that strengthens, you become stronger mommy and daddy, because there's a bond that's inseparable. There's a connection that's divine. So any thoughts there? I know I said a lot, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there. And any response you have to any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. And I love that imagery you gave of, two lanes. And I think you and I are maybe even closer together than this than we realize. Just kind of asking, is our children incorporated in marital union? Should they be? And kind of what's the ideal? Mm-hmm. And I think it's really kind of agreement upon that idea that, man, our marriage, our relationship, our bond, it's bigger than us.
Yeah.
It's bigger than our kids. And really this idea of, I love what you said, you've got to get away. Just finding ways to make sure that our marriage does stay bigger than us, bigger than the kids, and that nothing becomes that wedge that pulls the two, that pulls that couple apart.
Right. Absolutely. So yeah, like I said, just wanted to throw that out there. Of course, and like I said, there are some very much parallels about what's been said. There are some differences as well, but just something to think about, something to chew on. Oftentimes we get revelation and we see things, and it's not until we really have looked at things differently that we can see them differently. So I just brought out a little bit of a difference of opinion, but that's perfect. I definitely, though, do believe in what you're saying about that connection piece. It has to be connected, and they are connected. Like I say, in my opinion, they're just in parallels. They're two separate lanes, and they're going in the same direction, and that's the connection, is that they're going in the same direction, for sure. So I hope you enjoyed the part one of the season finale, Let's Stay Together. Be sure to tune in next week. We're going to wrap this conversation up. There's so much more to discuss, so much more to come, and I'm glad I had this conversation with my buddy. So tune in next week. Make sure you're here, right here, same place, same time next week, as we discuss the rest of how it is that we can come together in quarantine times. with this episode entitled Let's Stay Together. It'll be our season finale that's going to wrap up. And then we're moving forward into our next season with life experiences. I have some wonderful guests that'll continue to come on and share their stories and amazing experiences navigating through life. It's going to be so amazing. So stay tuned. I appreciate you for listening thus far. I love you. Have a wonderful